Reading the tarot of a dying planet. The first persecution of a cliff is the sun. It can be depicted as a mother. It is not clear. The goddess of shock will shake up frogs, lice, gnats, diseased livestock. The plague of wildfires is Roman imperial. The second card kills everything in scarlet. Turn the card over. I am afraid. If darkness was a slap in the ocean, presume a series of visions of boils, hail, locusts. I imagine jumping into the end of time, insert ink stain and paper cuts, the blood of saints. Maybe I seek redemption from cosmic disasters, preparation for a loop. This scarlet conflagration is going to come to this world in some way. The card has given you water turned into blood. The tower makes the sea sacred, my useless words at the edge of panic. Cardinals face the sun, away from the tarnished green, the doom of the land. The tattooist specializes in farewells. The words are peeled and pitted. A tattooist draws a snake tail on the passenger's arm, with time running out of a demon hourglass, and black feathery wings leathery. An hourglass with melted storms, chemical in a long pale journey, the earth as pink crumpled up ball, observed from the ice, stitching up the wind with muscles clenched, this poison narrative covers a butterfly. There's no word for love here, love that created the earth, and not this metal bridge misery. Life is the permission to begin, the tattooist writes. Flee our earth flesh so we can breathe again. The tattooist draws names over and over on backs and shoulders like an incantation. Alchemy, the perfume of make-believe, fool's gold from despair to despair. Everything seen, done, spoken might be made sensible should the night ever end. Doubting space everywhere, flooding shoreline and the pastures in which bodies once exhaled, this planet overcast, making stalks from weeds. A deep sense of inner malady rushes along as it blooms with the odor of bees that carry seed pods off cliffs. A customer requests her abandoned house of oil, of amber, sinking into harmful water, changing the light to lines of color fading. That tattooist carves demons and angels like prophecy on the smalls of backs, painted and crammed beneath calligraphy in harsh white, splattered with soft yellow and prehistoric blood. From soil and root to flower, insects crawl their labyrinthian quests into leaf, and in their petals humidity is a blooming frame. Former homes boarded, barred, and fenced, straining from writing, but mostly fizzled out. The rare blue sky from a distance, gelatin silver symbolism. The ditch flowers decay by the empty schoolhouse. Smokestacks glow mandalas of apple trees in the cold, and time is somnambule, gray and pink, with still tight-fisted buds, barns warped, soaked with rain blossoms. Rust on abandoned sugar shanties, strange pans hanging from the city, stringing out the story to make something of midnight love, sending out intense blue, little bungalows, forge-made nails, the late nights of snow, ungainly, luminous, overgrown, molecular and pulsing. The tattooist adds cactus flowers to cochineal ink, ground and rehydrated into the rich pink of years ago, when blossoms were prone to wandering. Slowly, the liquid dries into a delicate yellow drifting. A gust of ice wind over the skin, as if the petals are still in flower. Words wrapped in wax paper drip cherry sap into electric pink farewells. At the top of a shanty ladder, the beautiful patina of the moon, unclasped, as the tattooist lets the pieces of light shatter into endings. Buckets full of dead insects. In the end, the old-time natural light of photos hinged by memory. Such beauty no longer exists. A team of horses run black as crow's wings, are dotted with chokeberries of blood. Green waves toss fleeing tails over the bow of ships, stormy seas, covered in the nightmare art, demons crouched in snow, surrounded by branches, the need for escape lodged in broken dark fragments. Swamp asters beneath metal bridges packed with angels. Tight script tangled groves covered in ice, streets in the early sharp visions, all directions torn from pages, ripped handwriting, wild loops in the wind, reddening the ground. Willowmena's goodbye tour of the Milky Way. Inhabitants of the galaxy left their garbage. We ransacked the castles of capitalists for ruined ball gowns and luxe interiors, leaving behind piles of so-called smart technologies. The smallest planets retain memory. Even the heat from rocky planets once grew trumpet lilies that became the fastest coffins, stars as solar black and white ghosts. I was a creature of many worlds, refined and alternating between mystery and water. A piano composition, I made ink out of hides from drug flowers found nearest to the sun. I thrived in dense atmospheres. Songs came from ancient Roman gods. Night loved a certain flower. Metal and hazy depths, terrestrial orbits rich in clarity for medicine and color. I cried when I saw rivers from space, clogged and swollen arteries. They say there are dead fish floating over rusted-out cars and plastic water bottles full of algae and clumps of leaves. The stench is unbearable in the stagnant pools of gasoline, acid rain, and gelatinous chemicals from factories brewing together as toxic stew. Impressive roots known by sunlight. Remember auto-breath? All those years of bright wilderness, gold to dyers and herbalists revving up the lungs. The talking heads continue their babble. On big-screen TVs mounted on the walls of the jagged glass of skyscrapers, an endless loop recording of hate speech and propaganda. Duly noted, what killed Earth is the inability to work together, to love the planet as an aging parent or a child. Argon, helium, hydrogen, krypton. We didn't survive long. Evening, and then oceans uprooted, chicory vapor, flybys of true history imagined ochre, landings of rotting fish evaporating in the thick air, the rare blue whales racing to extinction. Planets as cracked as Wedgwood China, all the heat and crushing pressure. We fizzled out, neon and xenon, a journey for vultures. Fields once amber with wheat and soy are now glowing from fire as the planet moved closer to the sun until we had to flee. I had a little house there I shared with others, each according to our need, but the greed set in, and the hierarchies gave some bigger dwellings than others, leaving inhabitants to fend for themselves on the rings. We heard their cries nightly as the rings turned the sounds of ghosts, haunted us into sleeplessness. They mapped planet's surface to several waterspouts, over cloud-covered worlds, flowering in lower-pressure winds toward the pole's tornadoes. Angry, always angry, red dust luring warmongers and megalomaniacs with a thirst for blood, slaves in cages tortured and seen as a means to an end as they labored on digging trenches for canals. Down to the ground for psychoactive effects, inward other rabbit holes of silence, machines endlessly humming. I held my breath for beauty in the burning. Frozen methane as clear sky blue, a tectonic requiem produced by volcanoes, underwater black fires, this dream edition at a cemetery, artist unknown, barns burn out in the dark. Tears rain down over the galaxy, a string of pearls, the storm of melancholy, where musicians composed great symphonies. I picked up pianos for the House of Burlesque, the wood scraped down and yellowing with rot, and the keys cavitied and dull. Some of the instruments were toothless, and this made me sadder still. Seafloors ruined by chronic coughing, long-term adverse effects of humans' repellent eyes, thick layers of addiction, made of molten rock, syndromes of respiratory ailments. I can no longer keep track, using marks for spiritual pity, soliloquies as fluid ghosts in my dreams. Tiny blue sight of the heart, bruised and barely breathing, home of unrequited love, our Sparrow's abode. Tiny blue flowers covering the planet, faded in the deluge, starved of air, its soil purple and depleted. This journey fires psychosis, hallucinations, panic, paranoia. We risk devastation, wastelands of trees without blessings, difficulty breathing, nausea of casualty eaten at the edge of moons. the once shimmering purple now pale and disheveled, its maple and ash trees torn up by brutal winds, unceasing sands clogging rivers, lakes, and oceans, its heartbeat a muted drum. Anxiety delusions shimmer briefly, familiar to be in the long ghost song, trapped by a soundtrack over thousands of years. We smoke infatuation, our euphoria, altered ditch flowers become somehow sky. The night has a single moon, orbiting asteroids collide into short-term memory. Parched stalks represent the medieval symbolism of life, writing the end. Ancient trees chopped up for kindling, to burn when it turned its face away from the sun, leaving its planets in eternal cold. They burned everything, setting themselves on fire to keep warm. Home of lilac and silver, the scent of burnt remains and ashes. Shrouded in thick acid scars by solar radiation, filled with carbon dioxide, yellowish clouds of sulfuric and leaf organisms, blood to a runaway greenhouse effect trapping heat, the petals intense to extreme, our solar desire toxic, this scorch mission, tilted at an angle, spun slow around the sun, frosted over inhabitants, frozen in place in the act. A daily life, a 30,000-day year comes to an end. This hazy depth of names without flowers, a traumatic time, rugged black and white stars, our solar system, namesake neighbor is rich, the temperatures can reach highs. The home of the burlesque dancers, orange cloudy surface, eventually smothered by gases and heat. War between the planets. Intensities outgrown, soldiers huddled in vegetation, gray with weaponry to destroy pattern. Inhabitants shrugged and returned to immediate pressures of necessity. The ghostly deserts, no water, their land dark with instruments, intelligences only doublespeak. Sludge doesn't brighten, miles from their ships, with glimpses of the end. Chronometer dropped in ice, time stops. Snowcaps, yet another sprawl, interminably across oceans in dusk, as citizens and soldiers fight for resources over broad rivers. In the cloud, wisps linen napkin bodies, boneless and gasping for water. From the metal sky-born headquarters, cloudy atmospheres seemed eloquent, like shrunken china cups, tiny below the great silver spaceship. Stark ruins black with crows haunting the flat lands of warmer planets, but green was long gone, no more melodies of hope. The dying lay on ruins, cloaked in morning stars, waist-deep in navy-crowded seas bright with bombs of nuclear winter. The air is neon green across space, even in the softly falling rain, broad stretches of drifting, armor orbiting, survivors gather and hunt for power, hardened in the white-hot sun, no shelter, commanders glance nervously, the prophets were right. Each planet had its prophets, end-of-world predictions, all called crazy, crystal balls cloudy with smoke, bloody tarot cards. On the dark days everyone found a way to be drunk or high, the only means of escape. The potter's porcelain cups. As a little girl, the potter was a lonely creature who disappeared in the cobalt landscape, sickly and fretful, toddling through her blurred world, imprisoned by melancholy, until some faint instinct drew her to the blue flowers and the patterns of round vowels in the ceramic studio. She loved the porcelain of her planet and went with the master potter to dig it out of monochrome. Gloried in the rushing water, in the light of spring, surrounded by the grief of a dying planet. The ice was yellow, but she was no longer alone. In a second firing, she beheld the blue pigment, the stars glistening above, tin-glazed, applied by her hand, shivering with stars. It made her strong enough to withstand the highest firing. As those around her grew increasingly hollow and coffins piled up of the last beings on the planet. Grief became her instrument, the night sky oozing black and rivers giving off the stench of green mold she used for a glaze. Blue and white over the glaze with brushed twilight below, infinity of snow and yellow, a syllable's sharp edge didn't matter anymore. The scribe has trouble sleeping, has recurring dreams of the gradual change of the color of the sky. Its chalky unknown, continents odd and waxy, a faded indigo. Sees the planet in motion as viewed from above, neon clouds heavy with poison rain, sinking slowly toward Earth. Jagged ice caps melting into seas, tsunamis drowning millions, crushing buildings. Wakes up in a cold sweat, shivering with the screams of the dying still ringing in ears. It's 2 a.m., the sheets are ripped and rolled into rags from the scribe's clutch and tear. Fingernails dug into the flesh of palms, enough to draw blood, jaw clenched tight, the scribe wakes in the fetal position. May as well get up. It's been days without sleep. The ghosts of ancient forests are calling, haunting dreams. The scribe grabs an old abandoned notebook from the nightstand. It is brown leather and blank, given as a gift years ago by a well-meaning friend, but the scribe never used it, intimidated by the notion of tarnishing its pristine pages with his scrawls. He writes in pencil, lightly at first and then darker as the words keep flowing, everything from his dreams. The scribe stopped watching the news some time ago as whole towns were burnt to oblivion. It was too much, too sad. He was helpless. Hears the voice of the planet when he nods off. It's driving him crazy. Whispers of rain, wolf howls, and the cry of gulls. Ravens seek him out, dark wings causing shadows on the ground as he walks to his job. He drinks in microdoses all the time now, anything to sleep, to escape. The scribe has gone to fortune tellers. They predict the end is coming soon. He burns his pages, throws ink on the fire, curling up the scenes of devastation and death, swelling streams, towns washed away. He writes letters to the rain in pen or brush. This should not be happening. Composes a poem that imagines a better future. The scribe writes in an invented alphabet of his imagination with gold symbols, uses ink made from trees that will soon be extinct. A mushroom causes hallucination, colors weaving in and out of focus turn into leaflings, dream beings, sea dragons, a talking willow, burlesque. He spends all his time drawing and writing, shuts himself up in his room, burns incense, counts the rosary, and prays.